Hey class, Professor Eline here. Just wanted to make a quick video for y'all to give you kind of an introduction to GNS3 and hopefully get you a little more comfortable with working within GNS3. I know it can be confusing. There's multiple layers of virtualization going on, so it can cause some issues. So when you log into the InfoSec Learning portal and you launch the CyberSim workstation, that's what I'm looking at right here. I'm full screen with it, and you know, once you're in here, that's a VM. And then you launch the GNS3 application, which is hiding back here, the shortcuts on the desktop. That pulls this up here, and you open up your Project One Stepping Stone file, and you're greeted with this network map. So I call this the field sometimes, or just the network or the topology. Um, so I apologize if I, use different language there, but it really is the network topology for the project. And to get started, I click this button here that shows all the interface names, and then I click this green button here that starts all the nodes up. So that gets a head start. To prime this video, I launched some of the Office router and the customer service FTP server and a bunch of the HR PCs and one of the sales PCs. And the reason I did that is because they take some time to load up. No secrets there. Just logged in and got them rolling. So issue one is about controlling or limiting the HR department PCs from accessing the customer data folder on the customer service FTP server. So let me just go to this server right here. And there's a couple ways to do it. If you're familiar with managing users or groups within a Windows environment, that's probably the cleanest solution. So you have to jump into and I'll tell you a very high level what to do, but I'm not going to dig into it and kind of give it away. But you got to go into computer management, create the groups. So this takes a second to load. I already did it on this lab. This isn't a fresh lab, but you just go in here to local users and groups, and when you get into groups, then you can just it's pretty simple. You just can do new group, add your three groups for the respective departments of this scenario, and then you want to find the customer data folder on the server and control the permissions. So I'll go that far with it and let you all figure out the rest. The other method is maybe a little more of a brute force, but you can work within, figure out the local firewall, make sure you understand that the Windows firewall is running on the FTP server, so um, local is the server, remote is what you want to limit, and I'll kind of just leave it at that. Um, so that one's pretty simple. That's the two ways you can tackle that issue, and I highly suggest paying very close attention to the rubric. Um, there are requirements to take screenshots of the problem, the error, and the resolution. And I even like going a step further and validation of the resolution. If you're familiar, so we're limiting access to a FTP server. So, to prove it that it's working as intended, our resolution, we probably want to, jump into a sales PC and use FileZilla, connect to the customer service FTP server, and validate that we can access the files still, the folder still, rather, and then get into an HRPC and validate that we cannot access the FTP server. So if you're not familiar with FileZilla, do a little bit of research and reading on that and play around with it, and it's not very difficult. I hadn't used it in a couple years, and was able to get it in just a few minutes. So if you have any questions with that, please feel free to reach out to me, and I definitely can hop on a call and work with you to troubleshoot whatever issues you're having. I will say this. In one way, it kind of doesn't make sense, the order of the issues in this scenario. Makes more sense to do troubleshoot and implement the resolution for the HRPCs, which is issue 2 first, because until that's fixed, you probably get a false negative of fixing, limiting these folks to get to your customer data, these folks meaning the HRPCs, to get to the customer data folder. So again, do the troubleshooting of issue 2 first. Make note of it, but please, when you submit your paper, still do issue 1 first and issue 2 second. The grading rubric that I have to, go through is in that order, so it gets pretty confusing pretty fast if you have your paper out of order. So that being said, that's issue 1. Find the error or lack of control mechanism, screenshot, implement the resolution, screenshot, validate solution, screenshot. Submit it all. Try to make sure that they're high resolution images and not too big for your submission. Resizing in your documents can be quite cumbersome when I'm doing that 27 times for every screenshot for every student. So issue 2 is troubleshooting the HRPCs to get out to the internet. So what do we got in play here? Full path. We got our internet cloud, we got our edge firewall, an edge router, an office router, a human resources switch, and we got 4 PCs. One thing to do is to look at our office router. So all you have to do is right click, go to console. I already have one open, so let me close that one. So this gets you into the console. Type in the user and password. Type in, it likes the show conf, the shortened version. Didn't like my full version there. So show conf shows you the gateways of the networks that this router knows about. So these are gateways configured, or IP addresses configured on the interfaces of this router. So directly connected subnets or networks. And the HRPC or HR department network is 192.168.30.254. The reason that matters is we need to figure out what's wrong with these PCs. And when we start jumping into them, when we look at HRPC4, it doesn't have any internet. We need to figure out why. So we need to look at, local IP configurations. And it even mentions in the issue about the switch. So if you jump in here, the switch is kind of a dumb switch in this virtual environment. So you just hit this configure. There's an issue here, so I'll let you guys figure out what that issue is. There's a pattern. I'll just say this. There's a pattern from the sales switch to the customer service switch to the HRPC switch. And this is a little funny. If you have trouble with configuring this and figuring out how to do this, please ask. I can show you here. To change a VLAN, we'll just do port 7 for instance. You just go over here, go to port 7, and let's just call it VLAN 15, hit add, and as you can see that changed. Just do an apply. Okay, so I'll change that back for this lab, just so I don't do anything crazy. So really easy to change the VLAN that the switch port is configured with, and I'll leave it at that. Switches do VLAN things, right? They control VLANs, they plumb traffic around the network based on layer 2 MAC addresses within VLANs, and VLANs separate broadcast domains. Okay, so switch level, we need to look at PC level stuff. If there's no internet, you kind of just jump into the settings here, look at properties, and scroll down and see what's going on. And quite honestly, what we want to look at is, hey, does this IP address make sense versus what our gateway and our subnet is, and /24 is 24 network bits. That means the 192.168.30 portion of that IP address is the network portion. So .0 is the network address for the network, and .254 is our gateway. So that's right. That's right. So I'll leave it at that. So HRPC4 locally, no problem. Problem elsewhere might be here. That's a hint. So you'll have to go through each of these PCs. Remember to do this level and the switch layer, and that's that. So I just it's difficult for me to not give away the whole kit and caboodle, so to speak. So the router again it knows about the sales network, it knows about the customer service network, knows about the HR network. They're all directly connected networks. So the way routers work, if it knows about it, it knows where to send that traffic. So all the routing internally to this network is okay. I know a lot of students start thinking, oh, routing's not right. Oh, the firewall's in play. Internally, it's all good to go. This router knows exactly what's where, and if it isn't a directly connected network, well, it knows to route it elsewhere. And how do we know that? We can do I'm sorry, let's not show route. Let's dig in here a little bit. All right, so in here we just do a show config and go down a little bit further, and what we can see here is the router has this static route. So if it's not if the traffic needs to go somewhere that it doesn't know about, the routing decision that it makes, it sends it to its next hop of 172.16.1.254, and it knows that it's connected to the 172.16.1 network per Ethernet port 0, right? So if it doesn't know where the destination IP address is, it's just going to send it out Ethernet 0. Hopefully that makes sense. So as we are trying to figure out how to connect these things to the internet, we just determined that this router has a route to this router. And in the same regard, I can tell you that this one's good too. So it just has two IP addresses configured locally. ETH0 there is facing the firewall at 10.10.10.1. And as we go down further, we get to the static route. The local, remember the local to the router, or to the edge router was 10.10.10.1, and its next hop is 10.10.10.254. And then we jump into this guy, this edge firewall. Sorry, network devices are always guys to me. I don't know why. Ethernet 1, EM1. A little bit of a difference in naming convention, but it's still accurate. 10.10.254. So we know that the edge router sends unknown traffic to the firewall, and it just continues the whole way. But then the WAN address for the firewall was 192.168.122.126, and just based on, I don't know why they used like the 126 on this one. They should have used the 254 to stick with the pattern, but hey, it is what it is. So sticking with the pattern, I think you guys can guess that the .1 is probably this IP address right here. So when we do connecting to the internet validation from these PCs, this is the IP address we'll need to remember, at least the first three, and then the .1 is this one here. That's the only way I could find it. I couldn't figure out how to actually dig into this thing and find you do show node information. Doesn't have anything good here. Not good enough to just tell me what the IP address is for. So anyway, that's how we, figured out routing looks good internally and externally. Um, I think we can even validate, from HRPC1 out the rip that it can hit the internet. So, sorry, it's a little bit off screen. I just typed CMD in there. Well, now that went away. So make sure we're in the VM there. And what did I say that IP was? 192.126. Too many windows open now. 192, oh, 192.168.122. Let me just move that over. Okay. 192.168.122.1. We ping it. So HRPC1 is good. When you find a known good, as I like to call them, then we want to replicate that. So I'll leave it at that. Look at the PC's config, look at the switch config for PC1, replicate that across the rest of them. And once you do that, make sure, again, you're taking screenshots of the errors and taking screenshots of the corrections, the correct configurations, and then take a screenshot of whichever computers had the problem. PC1 doesn't have a problem. Take a screenshot of this resolution, that or validation of that resolution rather, that will show you that you have solved the issue. So once you solve the HRPC issues, I recommend going back to, get back in the issue 1 mindset, where we want to validate that the solution we put in place for limiting connectivity to the customer service data folder on the FTP server is restricted. And really all you need to do is find the IP, plug it in here. Should be a quick connect, and you should be good to go. It should just pop up. So I think it is 192.168.20.4. Should be able to just quick connect to that. And like I said, I already went through and had the restrictions in place, so this will not work. This will not work. But you'll need to prove that it can work from sales and customer service after you implement the restriction to HRPC or the HRPCs. Okay. Hopefully that's enough to get you all going and comfortable in here. Again, what's really important is your networking foundational knowledge, understanding networks, subnetting, understanding variable length subnet masks. That is knowing, different CIDR notations. What is a /22? What's a /23? What's a /24? There's great resources out there on the internet. I can share some. I know there's a couple, CBT nuggets trainers that I learned from way back in the day, that have a very, very good method of teaching subnetting and networking, and then understand that routers route traffic at layer 3, the IP address, and switches do their thing at layer 2. VLAN IDs and MAC addresses, that's their game. If we're talking a regular layer 2 switch, there's advanced switches out there that can do multi-layer, and then you get into virtual interfaces and layer 3 interfaces on a switch, and all sorts of other things come into play. First hop routing protocols like HSRP or VRRP and things like that. So none of that to deal with in this scenario. So hopefully that's a good start. Please excuse, how rough this is. This is my first go using OBS for this, and I apologize. A little raw, uncut, unedited, but I just wanted to get something out there for you all. Show how I poke around. Launch all the PCs, log into them all, and then really make sure that you're following that rubric and hitting each of those pieces that it's calling for. Because if you're missing validation of the resolution, it's kind of only half the job, right? And if you're missing, if you just do one screenshot of HRPC1, well, I know that PC is good to go from the start, and you really didn't find the problem. And then don't make any assumptions. Be very thorough. In cybersecurity, we need to be very thorough and analytical. We need to prove each step of the way that there is a problem, that there has been a solution. We need to, forensically go through this and really look at, each of those HRPCs and make sure that we're capturing the screenshots for each of the problems, each of the fixes, and the validation pieces. So let me stop rambling, let you get back to it. I know this is running just over 20 minutes, so hopefully this is a big help. Please give me some feedback too. Tell me where I could improve with this type of method of sharing and getting you familiar with this. Hopefully I can spin up a couple more of these for other assignments throughout this course in advance. So as I get caught up with things, hopefully I can stay ahead of you all. Thanks.